the beginning of this lo-fi, like, like weather news or something of that sort. Hello, everyone. This is your friend Carlz with another week of comic book stuff. Recently vaxxed, so I'm a little bit woozy, but it's okay. Everything to help. What is the name? Everybody was saying the name during COVID. Herd immunity. Herd immunity. I love that term because I like animals. I don't like thinking myself as a sheep or something, but I love animals. But there are some news to be discussed this week. So, first of all, was the announcement of the Amazing Spider-Man issue number 1000 for this coming September. They are already being so hyperbolic about it at Marvel, like crazy. The biggest issue, the biggest story. I just keep saying, I just remember when the 700 issue came out and it had that beautiful cover. I don't even want to know how much does that book cost nowadays. Now she was beautiful. Of course, back then we had like the Dan Slott dictatorship at Spider-Man, right? He was all over those books, and they were fun runs. The whole lead up to the eventual Superior Spider-Man, those were good years. Because I've said many times that Spider-Man and Peter Parker works in this, not Rolling Stone. What do you call those? Whatever. But it works in mountains and valleys, right? Ups and downs. But some of those get biggest build-ups, and they get bigger crash ups. So if the mountain is higher, the drop is of course more intense. Back then it was pretty funny, and nowadays I don't know. Supposedly, how can we believe when they say it's gonna be the biggest shit and everything? Everything is the biggest shit and everything, but unlike that, what I think is more curious is that, well, this is 1000, so even if they say it's the biggest thing, as they always do, for some reason they are using this logo of Marvel Comics that looks just like Marvel Studios, but instead of studios it says comics, which leads us to the next news. I mean, we can say much about Spider-Man issue 1000. Plus, it's gonna be in September, so we still have plenty of Spider-Man before that. But related to that Marvel Studios, Marvel comic, the other big news is that so they change the head of Marvel Comics, and they put the head of Marvel Studios into the comics. Like, I need to read this because I don't understand it completely. Because this guy, Brad Winderbaum, who is the head of television and animation, is taking over comics. And apparently people are speculating about what this really means, and it's related to the change of head at Disney. And I don't know, man. Like, when you read comics, and often you don't know about all of this shit. Like when they go, oh, they're changing the head of comics apparently to deal with low sales and everything. I'm like, low sales? I mean, what the fuck does that mean? And then you get a bunch of people speculating about Marvel getting behind DC because they have been killing it with the Absolute Universe. And I don't know, man. To me, as a consumer of stories, that's all I care about. How much can they really change story-wise with another people in charge of it? Like, honestly, if we are like a little bit thoughtful about it, how much can they change? They are we are talking about comic books, right? So we have certain environment of what is successful and what sells, basically. And as far as Marvel and DC and a little bit of a smaller degree, but also in that discussion, Image, we know they can only feed off each other. Marvel will always feed off DC, and that's it. They could never go as hardcore as what they do at Image. You know, they could never do that. And Image, since it's more like it's not indie, but it's like independent. It's creator based, so creators can go as crazy as they want, and of course, Image doesn't sell to one particular demographic, and so does most of the smaller editorials and imprints and companies. They don't have just one demographic. You can argue that Marvel and DC, they don't either, but we know, especially Marvel, we know that its demographics are teens. So how much can that change with another head in the studio? I don't know. But if we're going to talk about industry, this is the third. You see that segue? Oh. If we're going to talk about news, that's the last news I need to comment. The Eisner Awards nominees. And if you want to talk about DC's dominance, just look at the Eisners, as the absolute titles completely dominate the bigger categories. Best one shot single issue, like there's no way Absolute Batman is not gonna win. But you have two absolute titles. Ice Cream Man appears there again. And I'm glad to see Something's Killing the Children. A monster hunter walks into a bar. That short story about Erica. That's a good one. And James Tynion is probably going to be one of the most sought after writers in the upcoming year. He's all over. In the best continuing series, you have not one, but two absolute titles. Batman and Wonder Woman. And many of them, they could have been there. Like absolute Martian Manhunter, who has a book that has plenty other nominations, could have been there easily. And Absolute Superman as well. You have FML by Kelly Sue, like she's always there. That's good. The one that surprised me in a way is the Power Fantasy by Kieron Gillen. I can't enjoy that comic. For some reason I can't. I find it too wordy, too tropey. It's like no matter how much you make a tropey character talk, sometimes when you are stuck looking at the tropey or at the trope that generated that character, it's so hard to unplug from it. It's so hard. So I read that book and I'm like, yeah, I know what this character is gonna do. But anyways, Department of Truth is back there again. And the classics. And props to Storm as well. Then you have the limited series, and I don't know why Absolute Martian Manhunter is here and not in the continuing series. Probably because it's gonna end, I guess. And in the best limited series, there is this one by Boom Studio called Bronze Faces, which was interesting, but it also was so worthy, man. Like, so worthy. That is not just something not for me. And best new series, it was surprising to see Black Cat, like a series that has been always since it came out in this limbo kind of thing, with rumors of cancellation all the time and everything. But apparently it's nominated to best new series. I think it's been an okay series. I don't know if it has gone to the extent that I would like it to be. The same with Ghost Pepper. Ghost Pepper has been really successful at Image. And I think it's a little bit too anime-y tropey at some point, but it's fun and the art is amazing. What else is worth mentioning? Props to Jeff for being nominated in the best humor. Um, what else? Let's look at the big ones. Adaptation from another medium, U.S. edition, uh, academic scholarly work. I've never read any of that shit. Man, why are there so many? Webcomic. Webcomics. I haven't read a webcomic since Lore Olympus. Digital Comics, Overwatch 2. Best Writer. Dennis Camp for Absolute, Martian Manhunter, and The Ultimates. Scott Snyder, man. Mariko Tamaki is so good that she's there again. Kelly Thompson, man. For Absolute Wonder Woman. That book is amazing. And James Tynion, he's nominated for like Something's Killed the Children, Wind, another book that just ended that I love. Let This Be One Be a Devil Red. Let This One Be a Devil and Red book. The one about aliens. The City Beneath Her Feet. That was a short one. Department of Truth. Exquisite Corpses, that is also nominated, have been super popular. It's almost ending. And I think it was kind of like lagging at the middle. But anyways, I think the ending of that series is going to be awesome. World 3 and Universal Monsters, Invisible Man, if he doesn't win, it was also funny seeing Stephanie Williams nominated for Street Sharks. But yeah, a bunch of the usual suspects. Boy, James Tynion, man, he's been killing it. For as far as writer artist, I don't know almost any of them except Jamal Campbell for Satana. Best penicillin or inker, I want Chris Samney to win. I don't know if he has won before, but I love Chris Samney's art style. When he does the Bat Month and he does all of these black and white shadow Batman, man, he nails it, and he knows how to capture their characters. He was the main reason I like that book, the Robert Kirkman one, Fireball, Firepower. But anyways, I hope Chris Samney wins. I really do. And Hayden Sherman for Absolute Wonder Woman. It has such a unique style. It's awesome too. As far as another category that I want to mention is Best Cover Artist for Nick Dragota. The look he made for Absolute Batman, I think, is definitely determining for the series success. His lanky, monstrous, like nightmarish inducing design of the characters for the Joker and Killer Croc, even for Batman himself, like it's just amazing. But anyways, those are the Eisners. A lot of the usual suspects, as expected, but everything deserved. Like James Tynion, he just knows how to do fun stuff, and I think his most appealing element, for me at least, is that I feel like he always inserts some sort of romantic kind of like subtext in all of his stories. But I think he has a way of narrating his stories that is so realistic. You know, and like his characters are like, how can you say, like everyday people. They don't feel that fantastic. They feel like you and me. For example, in World 3, you can see yourself embedded in his stories. You know, they're like so down to earth, and the way they talk, they're not I don't want to say superheroes, but they are not like exaggerated figures of whatever, you know. But he's a fun writer above everything. Above everything, he's a fun writer, and I've been following him for a long time. So I'm not sure if he has won an Eisner before. By now, he probably had. You know, But the one that I think the one that I'm 100% sure is gonna win out of all of the categories, the one I'm 100% sure is gonna win is for a one shot Absolute Batman Annual. That shit was epic. And if you wanna buy something for your loved one as a gift for this Christmas, a copy of Absolute Batman Annual is not a bad choice. That shit is gonna be expensive. Let's go to this week's comics, shall we? Let's go. What is Spider-Man doing this week? You know, I have to comment on this Spider-Man because the 1000 was announced. I wasn't gonna talk about Spider-Man, but the 1000 was announced, and we are on the lookout for the kind of like build-up story towards 1000. I think that is what we are looking at it every week at Spider-Man from now until September. The past story, it ended like so weird. Basically, they used the whole Peter Parker in space commentary, whatever, to bring a couple of characters back into Spidey canon. Mostly that alien buff lady and that what is the name of that X-Men character who is like a virus? I keep forgetting. I can't remember all of their names. Okay. But they brought a couple of characters into current canon, and I don't know, the ending, the transition issue. They always have a transition issue between Spider-Man's stories, where Peter mostly goes like, "Yeah, man, I went for some tough shit, but now I gotta keep going. I'm Spider-Man," and that was basically it. And kind of like downplaying everything that happened before, and he usually sits on top of a building and he starts reflecting like, man, my life is in shambles right now. I need to regroup. I don't know, man. It's like you are trapped in the Spidey vortex if you read Marvel comics. I wonder what's gonna happen to him now. You have like a limited array of possibilities, whether it be a new love interest, a new job, a new villain. Apparently it's gonna be a villain. A new villain, a new job, a new love interest. I don't know. I hope it's not. Well, it's gonna be one of those. Next. Batwoman, this is time to comment on Greg Rucka's current run of Batwoman. It has been surprisingly intense. I think there's quite a thing that kind of like made me interested in, but how can you explain feeling weird or odd? Like, we have Absolute Batman, right? And Absolute Batman is this unhinged version of Batman, and clearly a more extreme version, clearly like a more unhinged is just a word. So you have that desensitized Bat family kind of thing, and that is what they're aiming for Batwoman in this current run. There's a big mystery that has made Kate a little bit unhinged and a little bit out there. She's freaking shooting people, and she carries a gun, which is no small matter. And even if that can be a little bit cheap in a way, so let's make this more intense. Let's just make her kill people. I think it's interesting because it's under the Venn diagram of possibilities of the character. You know, before her current solo book began, I said that I was excited because I haven't seen a solo book from her in a long time, and I always thought she had more particularities out of all the Bat family. You know, the less Batman oriented. So if you gotta start with a shock, it had worked. It has worked. And now if they're gonna bring Renee again into the story to sort of talk about her emotional and love life, yeah, and her love life in the book, you add that to her current apparently unhinged and intense state, hiding a secret for the upcoming storyline. That's all great. That's a great setup. Makes you really hooked to it. because it feels like it will have repercussions. It feels like it's gonna be intense, and it feels like you have something to look forward to. And they really nailed it at the first couple of issues, which is something not all of them do. As I commented last week on Iron Man, it's rhythm. Next, um, I'm using the Fantastic Four as I do often to talk about the previous story arc. So the Invincible Woman story arc ended in Fantastic Four number 10, and it was good, but I didn't really like the payout at the end. I thought that by Sue seeing herself reflected on a more extreme version of herself, it would have more repercussions on them as a family. And when they say we're coming back to Earth, right? We're coming back to Earth, and we are kind of like, how can you say it, like dealing with the children and the setup to the new future foundation. I thought the fact that they met this unhinged version of Sue, it was gonna be more impactful. That's what I mean. Like Sue was gonna go like, oh man, like this is my probable future. Like I don't wanna become like that. But what that showed us, the Invincible Woman story arc showed us, is that she is the most powerful of the Fantastic Four. I think that is the biggest takeaway from that. They have done kind of like things like that when they have made solo stories for Sue, and kind of like being really adamant about the extent of her power, but never before they had done it as they did with Invincible Woman. Because now Sue basically knows by a fact how far can she go. And even if Malice, or the Invincible Woman, was a bad guy, the fact remains that she can use all of those powers. If that effect is gonna effectively change the status quo of the Fantastic Four going forward, I don't know. My thought is that they're just gonna keep it as an ace under the, what is it? The under the hand. Well, it's like they're gonna keep that as a plot point for future reference. Like whenever they need to make something really shocking with Sue, they're gonna bring it back. But for now, it was a great story arc overall. It had interesting visuals above everything by the powers of Sue. I don't want to spoil the ending, but something happens with Galactus, which was pretty interesting. And looking forward for the next. What can we say? Next. This is, without a doubt, the book of the week. Another absolute title coming our way, and they have been making the rounds. It's already making a lot of noise. We have Absolute Green Arrow, and we have an Oliver Queen who is basically a murderer. And I don't remember the tagline for this. For the Absolute Universe titles, they always go, no money, no something. But for Absolute Green Arrow, apparently he's gonna scratch the itch that many of us proletariats have in this day and age. Apparently he's gonna be a millionaire killer. He's gonna hunt the millionaires who corrupt. It's like, apparently Oliver Queen is gonna have a shocking revelations. He's gonna go like, oh shit, man, I'm also I was part of the problem, and I'm gonna be part of the solution. And Black Canary in this scenario is gonna be like the detective hunting him. And it's a completely new dynamic for them, and we are so used to see them as one of DC's power couple, and I love them for them, but now we're taking it to the extreme in the absolute way. How is this gonna fit in a possible scenario of him being part of like Justice League in Absolute Justice League, or how does this fit on him being a hero? Is he gonna be just an anti-hero forever? How violent or how explicit are they gonna go? These are all interesting questions, especially for Green Arrow, who is a character that I've always been just warm to him. I've said it before, the most interesting Green Arrow stories are the ones that involve his created family, like the Arrow family. Like the concept of family in Green Arrow has always had this kind of like creative and emotional side to it. The concept of chosen family. For Green Arrow in particular, I think that is one of the character's best strengths. This billionaire asshole who created a family out of bonds of love. It's pretty good. But let's see how absolute he gets. This is so interesting. It's been talked a lot. The art is amazing. The design for the Absolute Green Arrow is kick-ass. It's the book of the week. Next. I'm not a big Cyborg fan. I never have, and I think I never will. When he had that adventure in outer space with Starfire, and who else was it? Was Jessica Cruz as well there? I think she was. But anyways, he's been one of those characters that he always have a brush with greatness, if you want to talk about it. Lore-wise, he is capable of so many things. So whenever they bring him back to the Titans, it feels like downplaying the character. You can't just be this big godly entity with connections to, I don't know, the infinite, whatever. I don't know how you want to call it. Like you can get that big and then just going down to a really small thing, like the Titans, even if they have been so close to being the New Justice League. But whatever, in this current story for New Titans, though, they are doing something really interesting by the repercussions of the recent DC KO event. Cyborg has effectively separated himself between his human and his robotic side, and apparently his robotic side is holding secrets for the multiverse. It's not the Omega, the Alpha energy that permeated many of the heroes that participated during the KO event has affected them in different ways. And for Cyborg, his cybernetic part, who has always been connected to bigger things, as I said, to the mother box and dark side, whatever you want to call it. But now they're gonna create a story based on the dynamic between his cyborg part, cybernetic part, and his human part. It's like really what an individual connected to the greater multiverse, what does that mean for that individual and for that individual's humanity? Now, this is an interesting plot for a cyborg story, if I've ever seen one. It has impact, it has emotion, it has effects on the characters, and since he's part of the Titans, he's also gonna be related to everybody else. It's a great, interesting setting, and even if you are warm on Cyborg as I am, it's bound to have a lot of relevance for the Titans, the universe, and the character. Great setup. Next. Speaking of James Tynion IV, there's a new book from him for Image Comics called Odin. It was super close to be my book of the week, but I've been really hyped for Absolute Green Arrow. In this new story, he goes back to one of the many things he does good, which is a mix of detective and horror. So the setup of this detective going undercover with neo-Nazis is already quite intense. you know. James Tynion is all about representation, and he does characters with like the tiptoe, more perfect blend of them being part of a minority, but being so into a story. Like how can you say it? Like you basically have characters that are part of minorities, right? But you put them in a setting where that is not their whole character. That is the thing, you know. You can be any sort of minority. You can be any kind of, I don't know, disenfranchised person. But Tynion always put them into their stories as if it was nothing, and that is the right way of creating representation, by having an interesting, well-crafted, relatable story where it's not that it doesn't matter that the character is part of a minority, but it's not the whole focus of the story or the character. So if he's gonna deal with neo-Nazis now, a lot of that commentary is gonna be there. And we have seen a lot of him doing horror and extreme and violence, as in Exquisite Corpses, which is kind of like the new, really awarded or recognized series from him. So yeah, I mean, a new series from him. What is the tagline that I saw in the press release? I had it write it down. No taboo unbroken. No taboo unbroken, man. Horror detective story with no taboo unbroken. Shit. That already sounds hype as fuck, isn't it? It's gonna be intense. Next. Where's my button? This book, I don't know, man. To be honest, the press release says, like from Chris Condon and Charlie Allard, the writer of, I mean, the penny seller or artist from The Walking Dead, and I'm like, cool, because I've been reading the Walking Dead. What is it? Unleashed. But the new version of The Walking Dead, the one that comes with color, I'm not that proud to say that I was never interested in The Walking Dead. But when they released it in colors, I was like, yeah, it looks great. You know, I don't know, man. Like this is supposed to be a horror miniseries, but the only two things that caught my attention was Charlie Allard and the fact that they talk about the series being like John Carpenter's The Thing. Okay, sometimes you just gotta be honest, and that is all it takes. John Carpenter's The Thing and the artist from The Walking Dead, which I've been reading. That's all I can say. But that's more than enough, isn't it? It's more than enough of the earth. Next, I personally like when I add these books that just caught my attention or piqued my attention for like the most random small things ever. You know, or just finishing reading an issue of The Walking Dead, then you go read the releases and they go like, yeah, it's a new book from the same artist, and you go like, cool. Next, this is another one that was so close to being the book of the week. Reborn, Ultimate Impact. We are at that point in time where, you know how I mentioned when they did that Miles Morales short story, when he went to the Ultimate Universe and ended up like for what 10 issues looking for his sister. That was everything. Like, I'm looking for my sister. Where's my sister? And then he took back that box with like the energy of the Ultimate Universe or whatever, right? But now we're here. now we are here. We're talking about that box. We're talking about that story, and Chris Condon, who is the writer for for the last book I was talking about, is behind many or not many, but some of the Ultimate Universe titles. But man, like that doesn't really matter, right? I mean, I don't wanna downplay. How can you say like what they're gonna do or the importance of what they might do? I don't know, man. I don't know what's gonna happen, right? But that is basically that. We had the box in the previous incursion for Spider-Man, and now we know what's gonna happen. That's basically it. Somehow it feels also kind of like cheap, isn't it? Because that short story of Miles going to the Ultimate Universe was so underwhelming. And I think I said so when I talk about that book. That basically the whole thing is like, you gotta read what comes next, You better pay attention. Well, here it is. Reborn Ultimate Impact. Let's see what happens. And this will change things forever, like the blah blah blah. It's just a continuation of the story. Let's see what goes on. Taking into consideration that Armageddon is around the corner, the next Marvel event. Next. How I just said that sometimes I pick books for the most random things. The reign of the Superboys has been interesting. I just mentioned about Batwoman having this mechanic where you have this mystery of this thing to be revealed in the future, and that is what they have done with the reign of the Superboys by playing John Kent in different points of his life. Basically you have like a past, a present, and a future John Kent being together in the same moment. But the mystery remains of if the one that is allegedly John Kent from the future, if it is him at all. There's a lot of stuff to reveal, but but the Monkey of Steel sounds so fucking funny. And sorry, the super monkey. This is just a continuation of the ongoing story. Basically, in Superman, you have Superboy Prime and you have John Kent, who is discovering not only his future but his present and his past. It has been mostly fun, but I'm just feeding out of the curiosity of the endgame. Whatever endgame is there for Superboy is completely gonna be attached to the eventual return of Superman. That's more than clear. So, am I recommending this just because it says the Monkey of Steel and the Super Ape? Yes, but it's just a reminder for you all to keep a watchful eye on the current reign of the Superboy storyline, because even if it has been kind of like spread out throughout many titles and with a lot of characters. Recently, I don't want to spoil it, but when the younger John Kent came back, he didn't came back like normally, even for comic book standards. There's a bunch of shit to be unpacked there, for sure. And last but not least, the current matriarch story with at Wonder Woman, led by Tom King, it's been kind of like strange. I don't know why they allow him to play with the canon of the characters in such a loose way, because basically the current matriarch story happens. It's not a flashback. It's like you are telling a story from the future. The book began with the matriarch already dominating the world. And sometimes when they do, especially Tom King does this jump back and forth in time between it, it's kind of like confusing, because if the matriarch is already has already won in the future, she allegedly defeated Superman, she defeated Batman. Of course, we didn't see any of that. So he's telling us the story from the end past the beginning and using that to help the development of the current characters. Is a strange. It's a strange. He has done it before, plenty of times, but for some reason it never really bothered me until the current storyline. You know, because basically I feel like Trinity, Lizzie, Wonder Woman's daughter, she has been kind of like shoehorned into our lives, and we didn't really get our time to properly fall in love with her as a character. We had that mini series about her searching for corgis, throughout history. But I feel like they gave us a compressed version of the character. You really didn't get the time to, as I said, fall in love with her as we did with John Kent over the years, and Damian with even longer time. It was like, here's Trinity, here's we blurred it out, and we created the most impactful, intense stories in the shortest time possible, and we are delivering that to you, so you can immediately love the character, which I kind of do. Like she's like, I don't know, like out of all of them, the Trinity, I mean, Damian, John, she seems the most down to earth one. When they say the brains, the heart, and the soul for the Trinity, Wonder Woman being the heart, Lizzie is even more of that, because she's like an updated version of Diana. Diana has the whole perspective of the gods and this really grandiose look at life and the world. But Lizzie is the same, but in a more grounded way. Family, but we didn't really get to see that much. And the current storyline, as I said, it also triggers me in that way, in that matter. It makes me feel like this time skip is just to give us an express version of the life of a character, but still being awesome because it's really intense. The matriarch character is such a cool character. Even if she already won, we introduce you to a bad guy who already won. But now they are transitioning into my most known weakness, which is a family story, as Steve Trevor is coming back to the mix. He's supposed to be dead, right? So we'll see how it plays. It triggers all of these thoughts in me, but at no point I find this boring, bad, or anything. It's amazing. So I cannot not recommend it. Wonder Woman. And that's it for another week of comic books. Field of James Tynion. I remember saying once, I don't know if he says his name like James Tynion the Fourth or James Tynion IV. I don't know. One of the greatest writers of our generation, for sure. We'll see how it goes. We'll see who wins the Eisners, as I said. If Absolute Batman Annual does not won for best one shot or like short, what is the category? One shot, single shot, whatever. If that doesn't win, this industry is done, man. We are not recognizing the proper stories that we need to be told in the mainstream. But he's gonna win. Mark my words. Thank you for listening. Enjoy your comics. Go read. Go live in Spider-Man's world or whatever. Spider-Man's world. Take care. Thank you for listening. See you all next week. Bye bye.